Hello. Today, day 6, we're looking at the Payroll Command Center. Payroll is available in MYOB Account Write Plus and upgraded versions of MYOB. So if you don't have Payroll, you may have to consider upgrading to get the features that we're going to go through today. If you only have maybe one employee, it's perhaps not worth it and you can perhaps manually do it. If you have a lot of employees, you may need to look at a bigger, more robust system than MYOB, such as MYOB EXO Employer Services or another program. So the Payroll Command Center is designed to process a simple payroll. It has the ability to deal with activity slips and timesheets, to accrue entitlements, to assist with the payment of PAYG withholding, superannuation and payroll tax. A useful feature is at the end of the payroll year it can produce payment summaries. So to use Payroll efficiently you need to subscribe to the payroll tax table updates and load them on the 1st of July each year. This is something that you subscribe to through MYOB directly. So let's have a look at the Payroll Command Center. I'll just swap my screen over. And now you can see the Payroll Command Center. So here I have the flow chart of all the different areas in payroll, and you can see categories, timesheets, process payroll, transaction journals, preparing payments, paying liabilities. So the first step of the payroll is to actually set up the payroll. If you click over here on Setup, pop down to the bottom and select, initially we'll select General Payroll Information, and you have these options here to enter the current payroll tax year, and we selected 2012. To enter the number of hours in a full-time working week, we selected 38. The withholder payee number, I never actually see this used. It is, I think I've been told that it's for if you have domestic staff. You have, if you pay down to in cash, then you can round the pay down to 0 cents or 5 cents rather than pay them in 1 cent pieces, which would be too difficult. You have here the date of the last tax table revision date. So if you're working, you should make sure that that is in the current financial year so that you're paying your staff correctly and that you're withholding the correct PAYG off them. All companies must choose a default superannuation fund. So in this case, it's been Spectrum Super. And the situation is when you have take on a new employee, you must give them a superannuation choice form. When you give them that superannuation choice form, you must, you must get them to sign to say that they've received it, and they have 30 days to return it to you. If they don't return it to you within that 30 days and you're required to pay them superannuation, you can pay it to Spectrum Super, which is the company superannuation. Of course, if they return their own superannuation choice, then you pay it into their own superannuation. You have the option here to set up payroll tax. Now, this you can only set it up for one state at a time. So if you have employees working in multiple states, you can't set it up for multiple states, only one state at a time. Okay, so I'm going to click OK on that. Now, if you didn't have the latest payroll tax tables, what you would do is again pop up here and click on Setup, load payroll tax information, and you'd come down here and click Load Tax Tables, and you would just click Yes, and that would load the tax tables for you. We had the correct tax tables, so it wasn't an issue for us. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the payroll categories. Payroll categories are over here, and we'll go in and click on them. So here are the payroll categories, and you can see across the top you have wages, superannuation, entitlement, deductions, expenses and taxes. You have the option to create new categories and you have the option to edit new categories. On the right hand side you have the refresh option, so if you do add anything then you can refresh it using that button. Now, the most frequently used categories under the wage tab is base hourly, and you also have base salary there. I encourage you to use base hourly and avoid using base salary, because when you are working through entitlements and adjustments, it's far easier to do it on an hourly basis than on a salary basis. We also have annual leave pay, which is holiday pay. That's a common one. And down here we have personal leave pay, which is the terminology now used for holiday leave pay. So if I click on any of them, there's not that much happening in here. If I click on base hourly, you can see it simply has the name, it has the type of wages and the pay rates, etc., but nothing there I can edit. If I come up to the top left-hand side and click on employees, you'll actually see that all employees are ticked on base hourly. So all employees are selected for base hourly. So click OK, click OK. And if I look at annual leave pay, again, this is based on hourly, regular rate multiplied by 1. I do have, now this is interesting, I have this option here to override the employee's wage account. So when the pay is paid, it goes to wages expense account. But if I'm paying them annual leave, I could set up a separate account that said holiday leave expense account. I typically don't encourage this and I don't see it done very often, but if you wanted to do it, you have the option to do it there. I do, however, encourage that you do this. Come in here and tick this button. This will make your life a lot easier. Tick that you automatically adjust the base hourly or base salary details. So when you do actually make an adjustment and record that they've actually taken some annual leave pay, all the other calculations are automatically done, which saves a lot of hassle for you. Okay, let's just have a quick look at the personal leave pay. And again, same setup again. We have the override wage expense account there, which I typically leave, but I do encourage you to tick that box there, which will automatically adjust the base hours if you take sick pay. Take some time to have a look at the other wage categories here. I think that a lot of them are self-explanatory. For those of you who haven't been in Australia a long time, annual leave loading is a historical thing that many people don't get these days, but some people who've been working in an older company may receive it, and it means that you get an extra 17.5% of your wages when you take holiday, which is kind of a weird thing, but it's to encourage people to take holiday. The second tab along is superannuation. Lots of different superannuation set up here, but the main one we use is this one, the superannuation guarantee. So sometimes if you have inherited an MYOB file, you may find that you have lots and lots and lots of different superannuation categories set up here. So maybe Sun Super superannuation and self-managed fund superannuation. You don't need to set up a different superannuation for each different superannuation organisation that you deal with. You only need to set up one superannuation guarantee here. So what I'm going to do is I will remember we set up the default one when we went up into setup and into payroll. We set up the default one, and the other ones we set up under here, list superannuation funds. So we are okay just having the single one here. Everything is linked to this single one, and then you go out and specify which individual one the employee is associated with. So if I click on the zoom arrow here, and I want to highlight what I've got going on in here. So let me just take a drink. Now, the name is Superannuation Guarantee, so you could have called that SGC, Superannuation Guarantee Contribution, whatever suited you. Now, the linked expense account. I've linked the expense account 2000 superannuation expenses. So if you don't have it linked to that, go and create that account and link that. And I've linked the payable account to 200 superannuation liabilities. So let me explain what's happening there. As the business is paying people, superannuation expenses are increasing. Okay, they're increasing, and the superannuation liabilities are increasing. But then, at the quarter end, the superannuation liabilities drop down because you actually pay the liabilities. The liabilities are something that you pay every quarter, and so then the liabilities start up again. However, on a yearly basis, the expenses don't drop down. They accrue every quarter and they just keep going up. So your superannuation expenses and liabilities will be equal maybe for the first quarter of the financial year, but after that the superannuation expenses continue going up while the superannuation liabilities go up, then are paid. Then they go up and then they're paid. And so you're constantly accruing them and paying them out because it's a clearing account. And I really like to have it really specified so you exactly know what's going on. So that's why I call it superannuation expense, superannuation liability. So it's really clear what we're doing there. So we have down here, must be printed on the pay advice. We have the option here, it must be equal 9%, so if it ever changes, that's where you would change it. So it's currently 9%. I have set up that there's no limits, but there are limits. So you need to check what those limits are for the year. And I have that you have to calculate once $450 of eligible wages have been paid in the month. So if the staff member is only paid maybe $300 in the month but is entitled to superannuation, they will not receive any superannuation. If the staff member in the first week gets paid $200, they won't get any superannuation. If they get paid in the second week $200, they won't get any superannuation. Now in the third week of the month, if they're paid $200 again, so they've now been paid $600, they are now going to get superannuation of 9% on that full $600 because that full entitlement becomes due. So you must make sure that you have $450 in here. So even if you think, oh, well, especially sometimes if you pay people small amounts of money, they're entitled to superannuation, why isn't it accruing? It doesn't matter. You put it in there and it will accrue naturally. Now I'll highlight up here. We have employees, and all of our employees are ticked for superannuation. So typically everyone qualifies for superannuation unless they're under 18 or they're over 70, but check on that specification at the time. So click OK on that, and I'm going to click, what I'm going to do also is click up here on the exempt button. So you click on the exempt button and you'll see here the following wage categories are not included in the superannuation guarantee. So annual leave loading, advance pay, bonus pay, overtime, these are not included in the typical superannuation payments or calculations because superannuation is only paid on ordinary time earnings. So we've excluded it there. I'm going to click OK here. I'm going to click OK here. And I want to highlight to you that when you have a superannuation fund to set up, you come to Lists, Superannuation. Remember, I've said over and over again, MYOB and any accounting system is a database of lists. And here is my superannuation funds list. And if I click here, you can see my superannuation fund name. I would have in here my employer membership number. I don't have anything there. Contact phone number and the fund website. And so you can go through and put as many superannuation funds there as possible. That's completely fine. You could retain all the information there for them, and that's where those information, etc. is linked. So I'm going to click close on that, and I am back in my payroll categories area. So just to remind you, I'm at the Payroll Command Center. I'm clicking on Payroll Categories, and I'm now on the third tab, and I'm looking at entitlements. So let's look at the first entitlement, which is annual leave accrual. This is called annual leave accrual. That's the current terminology, but again, it changes. So it's difficult to keep up with these things. You can have the calculation basis being a user-entered amount per pay period, equaling a percentage per pay period, and equaling a number of hours per pay period. It must be printed on the pay advice, and typically, depending on the arrangements, it must be carried over to the next year. If you're a small business, you want to encourage people to not carry it over to the next year and take it on a yearly basis. Otherwise, they will accrue and they'll build it up, and then that you might find that you have to cover someone while they're off for quite some time. Okay, so what I'd like to do to you is explain how I got this figure here. So I'm sure you're thinking, where on earth did that figure there come from? So if I just flip screens. Okay, so I flip screens. So over on this other screen you can see the annual leave rate, and the annual leave rate is a calculation of total hours per year, total hours of annual leave per year divided by total hours worked per year. Okay, so it's just a simple calculation. So we put in annual leave, you're allowed 4 weeks, so that's 20 days, and the day is a 38-hour week, so that divided by 5 gives you a 7.6-hour day. And you have total hours worked per year, you have 52 weeks in the year, and that's at 38. So the calculation calculates through, and what you get is 7.6923%. So that's how I calculated it. So if you have things different in your organisation, if you give people 25 days annual leave per year, then you have the opportunity to change the calculation here. So that will be the same, and you may change that, but essentially that will work out to be the same as this is the critical one, the 20 days. And I'll also mention, while I'm looking at this screen, when I click on it, we're going to now look at personal leave rate, which was exactly the same calculation, but you can see here 10, because personal leave is typically 2 weeks, so they've got 10 days there, and that calculates to be 3.84615. So a lot of people had it in at 8 days, so which would have been a smaller calculation, 3.3, something like that. So you need to make sure your personal leave rate is sitting at 3.846 if they're entitled to 10 days. So let's move back to my other screen. So I'm still here looking at annual leave, and I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to click on personal leave. And so you see here it's very much the same as the other one, equals 3.84615%, as I said. Must print on the pay advice, unfortunately. You must print that on the pay advice, and you carry the remaining entitlement over to the year unless your agreements say otherwise. I'm also going to highlight, if I click up here on the employee, 3 of my employees are linked to personal leave accrual, and the final one, Simpson Stella, is a casual worker, isn't entitled to personal leave or annual leave accrual. So I'll click OK on that. And I'm going to highlight as well up here on the exemptions that personal leave accrual is calculated, is not entitled to wages earned under these ways. So it's not entitled to overtime 1.5, overtime 2 times, unused annual leave, unused long service leave, and annual leave loading. Okay, it's not entitled on those ones. And we'll click OK. And click OK. Then the next one along is deductions. This is you can set up from an employee's wage, such as cost of an employee's purchase, for example, a laptop for private use, or a one-time deduction, for example, a loan to the employee from the business or for a union fee. The various deductions are entered as a percentage or a whole dollar amount and can be linked to relevant accounts. The expenses tab. In all my years working with MYOB, I've never used the expenses tab. However, if the business incurs an expense on the employee's behalf, then this area could be used to record it. Taxes. The taxes tab of the payroll category list window gives you access to the PAYG withholding linked account. So if I click here on PAYG withholding, and you can see here the actual linked account. It's a 2, that means it's a liability account, liability PAYG withholding. As I pay someone, I'm obliged to hold taxes off their salary, and I then remit them to the Australian Taxation Office. You can see here the tax table revision date, and if I click on the drop-down arrow, these are my actual different tax tables. So it doesn't matter what you look at here because it doesn't change anything, but you just might be interested to know what the different tax tables look like. Okay. And I'm going to click OK there, and I'm going to click Close. So that's sensational. We looked at the payroll categories there, and now I'm going to look at the payroll linked accounts. Pop up to the top here and click on Setup, Linked Accounts, Payroll Accounts. Setup, Linked Accounts, Payroll Accounts. So what do I have here? You may have to change some of yours. What I've done is we have 3, initially we have three accounts here, and these are for actually paying people. Okay, so this is how we pay people, whether we pay them by cash, whether we pay them by cheque, whether we pay them electronically. So the cash payments are paid from the bank account, and cheque payments, again, are paid from the bank account. So if you pay someone by electronic funds transfer, that again is considered a cheque payment. And so I've just linked the general bank account there. Now what I should highlight is the bank account for electronic payments comes out of the electronic clearing account. So if you actually process the payment within MYOB, create a bank file and upload it to the bank, this is the account it comes out of. Okay, so that's only for people who are doing it, creating a bank file and uploading it to the bank. Now, so the next thing is we have the default employer expense account. So the default employer expense account is 62,000 superannuation expenses. This is tracking the payments that you're making on behalf of the employees. The default wages expense account is your wages account here, and your default tax account is your PAYG withholding. So it's 22,100. So if yours aren't the same as that, you'll need to zoom down and select the correct one. Okay. So what I'm now going to do is we've looked at the setup, we've looked at the payroll categories, and I'm going to go and look at the employee cards. So I'm going to pop over to my card file, click on my card list, click on my 4th tab along, which is my employees, and these are my employees that I've set up. So all the employee information is detailed in the book. I'm just going to click on the first one, Rosemary Bostic, and go through all the information we can include on her. So you can see here for Rosemary Bostic, this is all quite straightforward. We have general, her name, her address. When I put in the city, I always capitalize it. The state, you must put in the correct state reference there, and the postcodes. You need this information. It's critical that you put this information in for when you actually do the payment summaries, because when you do the payment summaries, it will ask you for them. So you'll go, oh, I don't have it, so you'll need to put it in now. Phone number information, email information, website if necessary. Salutations, this is whether you call her Miss, Mr, Mrs, Madam, etc. I'll highlight down the bottom. We have these options that we can print information. We can send her a letter. We can send her an email directly from here, and this will go through your computer-based, so it goes through a MAPI compliant email system that's actually installed on your computer. And this will take you to her website, but as an employee, she's not really relevant. She'd have a website. I have a card ID up here, and you'll see later on the card ID is her tax file number. So this business didn't have a defined way to use a card ID, so what I do is put in a tax file number there. If someone has left your employment, what I suggest you do is come to their last name and put a Z beside their last name so they run to the very bottom of the list. If they have left your employment but you still need to do a payment summary for them, I suggest you put a Y on their last name and run them to the very bottom of the list. I'm going to click on card details, and here we can put a picture of the person, we can put some notes about this person, and some further identification references about this person. I'm going to click on the payroll details, and you can see here on the payroll details I have the opportunity to put in her personal details. Oh, okay, so that just closed. I'll just So I'm looking at, sorry about that, I'm looking at my payroll details, and this is just my general payroll information here. So I can put in the date of birth. That date's wrong there, isn't it? So Rosemary Bostic, let's put in a correct date for her there. 20th of the 1st, 1964. And we actually calculate the correct date there. Her gender, her start date, termination date. Don't put in a termination date until you're absolutely sure that they've left. You finalised everything, because you lose information when you put termination date in. Their employment basis, she's individual, permanent. Have the option of putting permanent or temporary there. And the employment status is full-time, part-time, other or casual, and she's full-time. We have selected her employment classification, so this is her job title, and you can click on Easy Add to add a job title in there. The payslip delivery status, we've got it set up to be printed, but it could be to be emailed and to be printed. You need to have permission from them when you are actually emailing the payslip, and notice that you have a payslip email option here. Remember, we had an email option here, so the emails can be different, and you have to put in the email here if you want to email that person. Okay, moving to the next tab along, which is wages. As I mentioned, I like everyone set up for hourly, and we have her hourly rate here. I'll highlight what I could do is click on salary, and say for instance she's paid a $60,000 salary. It would actually calculate her hourly rate. So then I click on hourly, and that is all okay. But this particular staff member is paid $28 per hour. And I have a setup for fortnightly. Hours in the fortnight is 76. And she's linked to go directly to the wages and expense account. So that's just the default wages account her expenses are going to. She is selected for having annual leave pay, base hourly pay, and personal leave pay. So that has come through from the wages categories area. So that came through from the wages categories area. Clicking here on the superannuation, this is where I actually select what super fund she's going to. This is where I put in her employee membership number, and I tick down here that she's achieving the normal superannuation guarantee. Then I click on entitlements, and here under entitlements, this is where I see her various entitlements. I tick in here, and both of them are ticked because she's a full-time employee. Now, when I first took her on, I could have, when I first put her into the system, I could have manually put an amount in here if I wanted to carry some over, but I recommend that you never enter manually information there because there is no audit trail, and you're far better doing it through a journal entry, because at any stage I could come along and manually change that. So I want you to do that through a audit trail. The next one along is deductions. For this particular employee, we have no deductions selected, no employee expenses selected, but then when we go to taxes, we have her tax file number listed here, and we have chosen a tax file tax table. So she would have filled out a tax declaration form, and we would have selected the tax table here, and we have the option here to put in withholding variation if we had one, total rebates, so this is the offset, the amount the employee will claim this payroll year, and extra tax. Some employees actually want to use the taxation system as a saving mechanism, and so they actually choose to pay extra tax. Then if I click on standard pay, this is what her standard pay calculation will look like. And I have the option here to actually put in here, where it says memo, I can put in here pay Rosemary Boss tick. And that will come up as the default memo on her pay slips, which is useful. I have the option here to look at her pay history, and I can look at different pay that she's received by months, by quarters, and by year to date. We haven't processed any payment for her yet. And I have the option to have a look at time billing. So this is something that we will use if you're billing out clients on an hourly basis, and you can put in the employee's billing rate and their actual cost per hour. The next step along, the next tab along, is looking at her payment details. So we've looked at all her payroll details. We now look at her payment details, and I have three options to pay her as per the linked account that we looked at before. We can pay her by cash, by cheque, or electronically. If I chose to pay her electronically, I actually have the choice to pay into 3 separate bank accounts, and that will just automatically happen. So that's a great thing if you need to pay into different bank accounts. Sometimes not-for-profit organisations need to do that. If I click on contact log, this is where I can record any information that's happened reference to her. So I can go new log entry, contact, and we can say something like she is away on business in Cairns, or something like that, just to remind us what's going on, and recontact her on a particular date. So I'm actually going to move back, recontact her on a particular date, and click record. And we'll click on the history tab, and this actually gives a history of payments that have been made to her. So these were actually manual payments, not payroll payments, and I can click back through the years and see what payments have been made to her by the month. And I click on OK. Now if you have the book in front of you, page 235, you have 3 more employees to put in with all their details, and I'll highlight, what I'll highlight is that I think the one that's worth highlighting is Marcia Brown. So if I click in on Marcia Brown, so if you enter all her information, and then when it comes to payroll details, come down to standard pay, and here what you're going to do is you'll type in, it came up as 76, but you actually, see there it's 76, but you actually only pay her 45.6, so that's what she works, that's what she's agreed to work. So you override that and that will naturally come through. And the other one I want to highlight is Stella Simpson Stella, and clicking on the payroll details, click on the standard pay, and she's a casual worker, so we've completely deleted any casual anything there, and we've actually set her up for pay frequency of being, oh, she's actually set up for a pay frequency of weekly there, but she should be fortnightly, so I'll go in and change that. Pay frequency, personal details, wages, oh, and she's set up for fortnightly there, and then standard pay has come through as fortnightly. Okay. Click OK. Right. Click OK on that. That's sensational. So pause the video and go in and enter that information. Now I'm going to close, and that information that you'll get from page 235 and 236. So now I'm going to close. I'm going to go to Payroll, and I'm going to click on Process Payroll. And here in Process Payroll, this is where we actually go through. We have a wizard at the side here, and this will work us through our payroll for these staff members. So I'm going to choose Process All Employees Paid Fortnightly. I'm going to put the date range in here, so 14th of the 10th, 2011. And I'm going to choose the pay period start as being 01, 10, 2011. It's kind of funny the way it does that. And 14th of the 10th, 2011. And if I had to pay leave in advance, I could select this option, but I don't. I'm going to click Next, so you can see as I do that, it opens up those options there. And I have come to the second tab, which is the Employees Pay. You can see all of my employees have listed here with their card IDs, payment method, so this is where you can check that the payment method is all the same. The net pay is listed here. I have the opportunity, if I'm happy with it, to preview my pay details there. And this is what the pay will look like, so I could actually print that off and get someone to sign off on that they're happy with that. But I will just click down. Click down, and I will select an employee just so you can see what's going on. What's going on here? The pay, remember the memo, I changed the memos, came through. We've got details of the payment date, we've got details of the net pay. It's come up and the base hourly is 76, and that's been linked to wages and salaries. PAYG withholding has automatically calculated and has been deducted from the pay. The annual leave accrual, you can see here, is accruing, and these are hours. That's the hours that she's accruing for this payroll. And the superannuation guarantee is accruing here. It's accruing as a liability, a negative liability, and superannuation expense. It's not really a negative liability, it just accrues there as negative on this report. So that accrues as a liability and as a superannuation expense there, the exact same amount. We have that we can print it as a cheque, and we have that the payslip delivery status is to be emailed in this particular case. So I could override that. I could override the option up there if I wanted. I can come in here and type in PAY if I wanted. Just up to me what I wanted to do. Okay. And I'll highlight again that 9% is 9% of this wages, that 9% of the wages. I'm clicking OK on that. I'll highlight that Stella Simpson. If we have a look at Stella Simpson, we actually need to go in and click on her pay, because remember hers automatically comes up with 0, and we actually have to put in 20 hours. Now notice as we put in the 20 hours, she gets wages, she has PAYG deducted from that, she doesn't accrue any entitlements, so there's no rows there for entitlements, and she doesn't accrue any superannuation because she's earning under $450. He's earning under $450, so he's not accruing any superannuation. Okay. So I'm going to click OK on that. And I could go through and put memos on each individual one, but I'm not going to worry at this stage. I'm going to click on record. I'm going to click OK. And what has happened here is I now have 4 checks recorded, and I could print the paycheck. I'm not going to print paychecks. I'm going to click next. And I have the pay slips here. So I can now go in and print or email the pay slips. So if I click on this option, I have 2 to be printed, so they would have been selected to be printed, and I have 2 to be emailed. So I'll highlight that if you have someone that you wanted to be emailed but has come through as printed, I could click on to be printed, click here, and then change that to be emailed. So as easy as that, click OK. And that hasn't changed there because I need to click the refresh button. I can click on to be emailed, and they will all be sitting there. They should be. Oh, of course they're not. And okay, not sure why that disappeared on me. I click on here, down here for the email defaults. So here you can actually change the actual payslip defaults if you need to. Click OK. And I can click on advanced filters and choose various options for actually sending out payment slips. And here I have the option to customize. So this is the payroll pay slip summary. And if I click on customize, I actually have the option here to customize it. So for instance, if I didn't want the annual salary to be displayed on the slip, I could delete it like that. Sometimes if people are casual employees, you don't want the annual salary to be displayed on the slip because it's kind of false. I don't want to save the current form. Clicking on no, clicking on 2010. So I'll see if we put up that so we can see that information again. And that didn't come up. That's not good. Anyway. So you have the opportunity to email these pay slips, and you can customize the pay forms there. So I'm going to click cancel out of that. And what I'm going to do is process another payroll. I'm on page 246 and I'm clicking process payroll, and this will be processed for the 28th of October, 28th, 10th, 2011, and the date will be 15th, 10th, 2011 through to the 28th, 10th, 2011. Tab through, click on Next, and here I have everyone has come up. All employees are going to pay exactly the same except Simpson Seller, and Simpson Seller will be paid 20 hours, so I need to click in on Simpson Seller and type in 20. Now notice that this month she's now gone over $450, so she's now accruing that superannuation base. He's now accruing that superannuation based on his previous salary as well. Okay, and click OK on that. And I'm going to record. Click OK. Everyone's recorded. Quite simple. Click Next and then click Finish. So we're going to run a third payroll for the Green Apple Gym, and during the past fortnight Tanya has taken 1 day's annual leave and Rosemary has taken half a day's sick leave, and Simpson only works 7.6 hours, so we need to record all of that. But what I want to do before we do that is I want to have a look at our entitlement balance summary. So clicking on our reports, clicking on payroll, clicking on entitlements, and then balance summary, and then click on, we're going to select a date. So go back and select first of this, that's a good date, and then we'll select just the current, we can go and select, that's good, and in fact, what date should it go to? Yep, that should be okay. We'll display. And what you'll see here, these are our different employees. Notice Simpson Stella is not there because he's casual. And these are the hours that they have accrued. These are the entitlements they've accrued, annual leave and personal leave. And notice that it actually has the dollar value there as well. So it's multiplied by their pay rate, and when they, say if they left the business, they would actually be paid out their holiday leave or their annual leave, but not their personal leave. Okay, so I'm going to just minimize that and I'll close that down, and what I would like to do is now process their pay again and making these adjustments. So I'm going to process the payroll. And again, it's fortnightly. The dates are 12.12.2011, and we're going to do it from the 29th of the 11th, 29th of the 11th, 2011 to the 12th of the 12th, 2011, and click on Next. And here we have all the default information here, and we need to go and make amendments. So Tanya has taken 1 day leave, so we're going to click on her, and she took it on the 29th of the 11th. So you can see here, now I want you to remember the base hourly is 3040 and the net pay is 2330. We're going to click on annual leave pay, and we're going to put in there 7.6 hours, and we're going to recognize that that happened on the 29th of the 11th, 29th, 11th, 2011, and click OK. And what has happened, see her net pay has remained the same, and the amounts have split out between annual leave pay and base hourly pay. So that's exactly what we wanted to happen there. Click OK. And she's ticked, in fact, and now I will go and I will change who else needed to be changed. Simpson Stella was only going to work 7.6 hours. So I'm putting 7.6 there. Tab through, that's all I'm putting there. Didn't even accrue any super on that. Oh, that's because it's coming to another month. Click OK. And Rosemary has taken half a day as personal leave. So let's click on the zoom arrow for Rosemary, and here personal leave pay, and we're going to put in there 3.8 because the typical day is 7.6, divide it by 2, 3.8. And we'll give her, she took the same day off as, and we'll click OK. And before I do it, notice that she's paid 1686 there. We'll click OK, and still paid 1686. It just splits it out of there, so that's great. Let's click OK on that. Everyone's ready to be paid. We'll click record, click OK, and we're not going to print the paychecks. We'll click next, we'll click finish, and what I want to do is I left the report open, so I'm going to look at the report, and here I need to refresh it. So this is what it was, and this is my hours taken. I'm going to run the report, and because my date was the 1st of the 12th, so I need to change that date there. So I'll change that to 1st 31st. Run the report. Sorry. Run the report. And I now have recognised the actual hours taken. So that's recognised the actual hours taken. So that's sensational. Okay. What I want to do is, so I've identified what's gone on there, and I want to now review what has happened. So I'm just going to close down that report, and I want to review what has happened. So if I click on my reports, and I click on my balance sheet, and click on my balance sheet, and if I click on maximize that, I have here payroll liabilities, PAYG withholding, and superannuation liabilities. So that's where I'm seeing my payroll liabilities in my balance sheet. I'm closing that down, and I will see my profit and loss statement, and I'll pull this back to be 07, and I'll pull this forward to be 01, just so we've got everything included in there, and we'll display that and click on maximize, and you can see here if I come down I have superannuation expense here, and I have wages and salaries expense here. And it would actually be better if I actually had them listed together, but that's showing you the expenses and where they're going into my profit and loss account. So looking at that, now I'm going to close down from that and close down from that, close down from that. And what I am going to do now is go into my pay liabilities, because I actually need to pay my PAYG withholding and my superannuation liability. So I come over here to payroll, click on this one, pay liabilities, choose my supplier. So in this case it will be Sun Super, because I'm going to pay some super. And I'll choose the date range. So I'm going to choose 1st of the 10th, because it's a quarter period, through to 31st of the 12th, 2012, and tab through, and I've got to put in 2011, 2011, and payroll liabilities, and see here where it says liability type I need to choose superannuation. That made it easier. And so my superannuation for that quarter, my obligations have come through. See how I have Sun Super, Spectrum? Well, I can just go through and tick them, or I can click on the top of the column header and it will sort them. So I have all three there sitting there. Click, 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 and that has selected all of those for me, and I am ready to pay them. I would pay them probably 1st So you have the 3 superannuations there, and we can record them. We would come back in and go and look again. So if I came back in and looked again, 2011, tab through to 31st of the 12th, 2011, and the remaining superannuation there is waiting to be paid, and that's to Spectrum. And that would be paid on the 01, oh, sorry, it would probably be paid on the 10th, probably wouldn't pay it on the 1st, 2012, and record there. So that's my superannuation payment, but I can also come in here, click on my liability type, choose my taxes, and choose the correct date range, 01/10/2011, and choose the correct date range here, 31st of the 12th, 2012, and then I have that range up there, clicking on PAYG withholding, and I now have the opportunity to pay that 10th of the 1st, and I can click record. Oh, and that's going to the Australian Taxation Office, ATO. Australian Taxation Office, and I click record. So what we've done is we've processed the payroll and we've paid our superannuation obligations and our PAYG obligations for the year. So there, what we've done is we've processed a simple payroll. So we've processed a simple payroll. That's come up a bit skew-if. So we've processed a simple payroll, and we're nearly at the end of the session. So you've gone through, you've processed payroll, you've paid your liabilities, and you're ready to start a new month. Thank you.